Hello innovators, hope you guys are well and welcome back to another crypto outlook. Believe it or not, this is a crypto outlook, but I wanted to start this one a little bit different. Obviously now we're showing our faces more and we've got that camera. I want to do something a little different this time, and before I show you the charts and show you the explanation behind what I feel, I want to tell you what I feel and what I think about what's going on right now. We've just had the monthly candle closure for April. Of course, it's rather bullish. Now the key in these moments is to understand where we probably are heading once all is said and done, and what the intention behind this candle most likely is. And we can draw similar comparisons to previous times in the cycle. The first thing to mention from the offset is something you've probably seen me mentioning quite a bit on social media at the moment, and that is that the markets do not move in straight lines up and down. In fact, the markets will often move in ways that will make you believe it's not going where it will be going before it actually gets there. And the key of the market as a master manipulator, as you would have now seen as well from our very first video together with Bernie, the market is incredibly malicious when it comes to achieving a goal of manipulating the market sentiment. And whilst most people will be looking at the current bullish candle for April and going, oh my God, it's a strong closure, the bottom's in, we'll never see these prices again, and all the usual rubbish that you would generally hear, from a higher time frame basis, it does not look any different right now. And as a matter of fact, from what I can see, feel and think, it seems to be the making of something a bit more sinister. Now the key of the market is not just to manipulate you, but also to constantly make you make the wrong decisions at the worst place and time possible. For me personally, point A is there, and I say this a lot in the videos. Let's just say I'm using a higher time frame basis to analyze the markets. I'm using a weekly and monthly time frame. And when I'm using those time frames and I give projections, and this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this video right now as well, it's because when I give a projection, let's say the projection I gave to the paid members was 109, 110K down to 70K, if not lower. In between that journey, it's not from there to there, it's not a straight journey down. There is often swings and ups and downs. And even with the range that we saw from around November 2024 to the present day, there has been a lot of choppiness. It hasn't been a smooth journey. And the big move down that took us to 74K essentially happened in a single week or two. So looking at the current present moment, I essentially feel that that 70K region is not only going to be broken more aggressively now, but it's still a major outstanding area, even as just a logical level of support. I think it's a huge region of interest, and notably what the market is currently doing at this point in time is deviating the belief away that that level will come back through. If you paid attention to one of the last videos I'd done with the charts, which was why I believe in an alt season, have you noticed something has changed over the course of the past 2 weeks? The reason I made that video saying why I still believe in an alt season is because nobody believed in an alt season anymore. In fact, every influencer and every large high follower account on social media was all using the same bullshit excuses. The market is oversaturated, this time is different, yada-da-da-da. People making a whole bunch of reasons to basically scare you away from buying. Have you now noticed in the space of 1 to 2 weeks, suddenly alt season is apparently just getting started? And it is technically true to some extent, but not in the way most people believe. And it's just another good example of how quickly sentiment changes and how those with arguably the most voice and the largest influence are often telling you the wrong things at the wrong time. The main purpose of doing this introduction as well is just to remind you, during times like this, controlling your emotions is absolutely essential. You do not want to be going all in after the market has pumped off a bullish candle. Because even on the basis we see a very simple pullback to, let's say, 80K, which is a very logical and rational level, by the way, we will very likely pull back to that zone regardless. It's just there is a greater chance of potentially breaking. But during these moments, you must understand it's not the size of the candle, it's not the color of the candle, and it's not the speed of the candle. It is where that candle has gone to. And the faster a candle goes to a specific level, it's normally intending to trick people in one particular way. And we've seen notable characteristics of this from the COVID crash to the FTX crash to the 2021 all-time highs to the pre-inauguration to post-inauguration all-time highs. Everything is done aggressively and quickly, yet price often goes in the opposing direction. So it's very important to be calm in these situations right now. And we're going to jump onto the chart, and I have got it here. I'm not sure if you can see it, but the purpose really of this video is to show you why I think this is probably a trap. Now, jumping straight on to the charts, where we are right now is incredibly vital. And the psychology of where we are is incredibly vital. And essentially, from where we are now, and I'm going to map out a zone for you. Again, compared to what paid members get, I'm going to make just a wide range. I think this is fair. And just show generally what I think could be on the cusp of happening here. And before we do that, I want to continue on what I said regarding the ABCD situation. Now, AB, as a matter of fact, if we were to consider this the starting point and this to be the next logical level to the downside, we've fallen just short of this level. Now, most people in this situation, again, going back to the past few weeks and looking at how much sentiment has shifted from where we were in March and even where we struck down in April. Now, many people, including myself, were looking for 70k as a possibility. I actually gave this level to members as a possible area we could get a bounce and a checkpoint, and it ended up holding. I'm not going to say 100%, this is what I was expecting, but I did cover this as a possibility. So because this has happened and because this was preempted, I understand what this could likely be leading up to next. Now, if we are to assume that B point is here, and the second B point is here, whichever one you determine, what I will say from the offset right now is during the height of this FOMO, there's actually a greater probability we could even break 70k here and start to head more towards the 60k region. In fact, just the entirety of this range here is absolutely vital, but I think more notably around 72,700 to around 69k and 62.5 to around $58,000. In terms of deploying spot and in terms of where I would really be looking to buy, as you know, I would ideally want to see this level broken and more into the depths of this support. Now, before I give you the kind of idea once again, which I covered in the alt season video, my thought process here is simple. I think we are going to break into this region, and this is not bearish. I must declare this from the offset. Nothing I'm saying here is bearish, because what I think will happen from there is one of two things. BTC will drive back up. It's kind of similar to the 2021 situation. In this drive up, there is a possibility that alt season takes place in this window. Now, alt season would most likely take place from a bounce down like this regardless, I feel. But notably, two things can happen to BTC here. It either drives down, bounces up, and we then see a continuation lower, just like we saw here. Or of course, in that instance, just takes out the high. Generally, a larger retracement to the upside. I think alt season has a good prospect of starting from around that threshold. We could even just break down below and then continue, break the threshold or even wick through 50 and go back up. The second alternative in this instance is BTC continues further, where you would want to be open anywhere from 130 to 150. And this would remain the very same concept, a full cycle continuation. So before I even say or kind of show you what I'm looking for, it's very important you understand it's merely a larger pullback in terms of the overall trend. And of course, as I have shown many, many times before, the overall trend of crypto is bullish. That cannot be mistaken in any way, shape or form. And I'm not saying we're not going to go higher. In fact, I think there is a fantastic prospect that by the end of this year, if we can see this come through, possibly even this month, moving into June, July, whenever, this could set up for one of those classic continuations. And a lot of those altcoins that are significantly underperforming, such as Ethereum, and those that are notably quite hated right now, like Ethereum, could actually become the front runners. And we could very well see F start to do something along the lines of what BTC has done from the FTX crash. So I need to make that clear from the offset, because obviously you are met with a lot of ridicule in these situations. And I also think it's very important to declare from the offset, these are my views. Like, this is how I view the market. And I'm not going to be afraid to state how I view the market, because people do not agree because they've bought here or bought here with the belief we're going to go up forever. And why is it that the people that promised you 150, 200, 300k on this rally up do not get any ridicule when they switch bearish here? But I am sticking to my guns. I've called this top. I've said this is our target. We basically got most of that movement. No one said anything when this was happening. No one said, Tori, you got it right, because they don't care or they don't want to admit it. But when we swing back up, and this is also a contributing factor, a lot of people right now are under the illusion that the bottom is in, and they are under the illusion that this is now going to take off. Notably here, when you look at the charts, whether it's any of these previous cycles, before the actual bottom gets printed, the market often creates a bottom. The key difference here is that is a bottom, not the bottom. So I don't think anyone here, and I recommend this to anyone, and I will always share my thoughts, a lot of people are scared to view the market from how it may actually be perceived, but instead they are blinded by social media and influencers who only a few weeks ago told you there was no more alt season, it's oversaturated, all that nonsense. But yet suddenly we are now seeing this beginning. And I think that is a contributing factor to why we could be going lower. You should not be afraid to share your views. And this goes for anyone out there that may just be overly consumed by what they are consuming, quite frankly, on social media, etc. Do not let other people's opinions deter you. Even my opinion. I could be horribly wrong here, but I'm not going to back away from showing what I see and feel because it's against the status quo. And it shouldn't be viewed as a bad thing. In fact, someone replied to me on social media today and said, bro, when are you going to give me some good news? And I'm like, bro, what do you mean good news? This is the best news you could ever hear. I am telling you there is a chance here, and a pretty good one I feel, that the market can decline further to give you cheaper buying opportunities to somewhere that's not very far away and possibly give you a miraculous growth that follows, where the cycle then ends. Somewhere up in this region. If it doesn't end here upon a bounce, this thing should absolutely bolster. And it's just the logical pullback. And I always use the reference of Forex charts in these situations. This is before I begin the process of explaining why I feel this is the moment that we could be on the cusp of a reversal. But if this was a classic Euro USD chart again, or GBP USD, Aussie dollar, and I said to you guys, here's a very key level, hasn't yet been struck, clear level of support here. And I'm only using basic stuff. I'm not going to show everything, but to explain this in the easiest way possible, even from here, this is the original level in theory. It was temporarily pierced, broken through. All I want to see is that met again, if not struck back down to the last logical supports in these regions. And of course, if you correlate that and cross-reference that across the board, it creates two very strong strike points for where the market could find support and bounce up further. If I was to show you this on a Euro USD chart, you'd probably go, yeah, actually, this kind of makes sense. But people don't think that way in crypto because it's arguably a much more immature audience. And people are just going balls deep on leverage and making very stupid decisions. Now, with this being said, the first thing to mention is how markets generally move. And going back to previous examples, now even over here, when we crashed down and then came back up to take out the high, something I was very vocal on during this time, hate me or not, I called this as well. This was just the liquidation of the high. Maybe that is what happens here. And this is the point. What you are currently seeing is very likely a retracement. And from where we are at 96,000 at this point, up into this threshold here, you must be very careful. And I'm just going to create a wider zone from pretty much $96,000 up to the base here. This is the first thing you should immediately be watching in this region. You may have seen on my X account, I said that if we close the monthly for April around 95k, there's a stronger probability we could start to drop lower. But I once again want to stress this is not bearish. This is actually very, very bullish. And the key to that is convincing everyone that we are back here prior to sweeping into one of these levels. Now, if we are to assume that this is a journey from A to B, something I have discussed quite a lot on my IG and stuff recently as well, and we drag this down to, let's say, B over here, and then we go to a daily time frame. As an example, there is a huge misconception, it seems, that markets move in straight lines. That's not the case. And in fact, the further we deviate from an area we have not yet fulfilled, the higher the probability we will actually come down to this level. And I'm going to show many examples of this because this is currently, again, to be very, very clear as well, an overall bullish trend. We are overall moving upwards. But from this area, very similar to this region here, we're currently in a downwards channel. And all we are seeking and pursuing, in theory, is the downwards trend, let's just say like this, to continue down into this region to help fulfill and continue the overall upwards trend, where I believe the cycle will then top. And notably, at the height of FOMO, you are more likely to see something like that occur. Now, if we use the weekly time frame to paint this very vivid picture I'm trying to paint, the journey to A to B is no simple journey. We go up, we go down, we go up again, we go down, we go up, we go down, we go up, we go down, we go up. Now, because this has happened, and this has happened with such force, most are currently blinded by the colour of the candle, like I said in the beginning of the video. They are also blinded by the size of the candle. Furthermore, they are blinded by the speed of this weekly candle. If you zoom out to these higher time frames and you look at where we have just come into, we have notably just come in to fill the March candle over here. We liquidated the low and we've whipsawed back up. We liquidated the high and we've closed back down below. So essentially what we are likely seeing here for May, and the fact we have popped up straight away, which is what I said on X again that I wanted, we are essentially viewing this as what could very likely become a wick from where we are right now, as simple as that. Imagine this pulls back down now, it'll be a wick like that, to a possible wick somewhere in this region. But the general consensus is this May candle could be starting off with a huge trap. And what you generally see after a bullish candle like this that has not really invalidated anything is a high possibility of a reversal. Over here when we pumped and crashed, a bullish candle came through that then led us down to the next lows. Over here we had a slight bullish candle, we reversed back down. Over here we pumped down, pumped up again, then dropped back down. And that's why, at the very least from this level, there's a significant probability of at least getting back into the 80k region. And if you are even considering entering, you should probably be a bit patient here. Because from a higher time frame basis, with all narratives removed of an alt season and anything else that everyone has been promising, there is not necessarily much change here right now. And the market is likely doing what it always does, and adjusting its direction on the way down to the inevitable target. And the one thing I often get, and one thing I have been getting already for many other coins is, and even BTC, is, bro, is this still in play? Bro, is this still in play? And when I hear that, it helps me understand that the likelihood is a lot of people are not viewing these higher time frames, where this closure has been contained very well within that previous wick. So it increases the probability, and the more aggressive, the faster and bigger this thing generally moves into the upside to start May, the higher the probability that in 1 month's time, we could end up reversing back down. And at the very least, breaking this low over here. Now that we have liquidated that high, once all is said and done here, we can easily start to progress down. Now, the key behind this is why we've probably just fallen short. And unlike most people who now believe the bottom is entirely in, this is perfect. I still stick to my guns, and you can see this here as well right now. It's just the last broken level. There was a great chance here we could have continued, and if we had dropped straight down, I would have looked straight up. But although we have bounced back up, this does not change the sequence of where we are likely going to be heading. And notably right now, in the immediate levels to be watching, is just this simple trend line here, which has not yet been fulfilled. And when you deviate away from the price like this, imagine now a bunch of people, remember, I wasn't alone at this time of looking for 70k. I was alone up here. And why is no one being held accountable for screaming the moon targets here? No one thanks me for that. But when we got down here, of course, we're all looking for 70k. It's logical. It's no surprise. But when that is not fulfilled and you quickly reverse back to the upside, what does this begin to do? This begins to create a huge momentum again of spot and leverage positions, where people begin to aggressively buy because the aggression and size and speed of how we've moved up has led people to believe they have entirely missed the bottom. Now, when I've been talking about an alt season and what I believe is not just mass capitulation and liquidation, the best way to achieve such a thing is to deviate price away to give the illusion the bottom is in. Because what this now tells me is when we ideally, hopefully, fingers crossed, somewhere in this range, again, let's be honest, if it takes out the high and closes below, it's still a reversal sign. We can't rule that out, but at the moment this area is quite nice. Now, should we see this and we start to crash down through that low, everyone that has now believed they have bought or the bottom is in and they have bought in accordance with that will not only have likely very little money left, this is where people are driven to capitulate. And should we get down to this level, this is what will cause the liquidations and the capitulation. We have also driven up aggressively with no pullbacks. So everywhere within this range is entirely long liquidations now that need to be targeted. And the likelihood is, as fast as we've driven up, we will drive down just as aggressively. The key I was looking for last week, and it has played out rather perfectly so far for the paid members, was this weekly high at least getting taken out. I wanted us to close, again you can check my X account, I wanted to see a closure below $95,000 for the month. Because when we now come in to take this out, we have taken out this high, and this high. This instead becomes a weaker closure for April and a wick creation possibility for May, which we often know in these areas when that happens, it's not necessarily bullish, it's not bullish, it's not bullish. It can actually be a rather devastating sign. And this has happened many times before. If we go over to this area here and imagine the same concept of an ABCD, A, B, C, D. Let's say from here, at this point in time, there's point A and there's point B. This was no smooth journey either. We drove down, and if you remember here, the bottom's in. Keep buying more. Oh shit, we break again. And then suddenly we aggressively drive higher, giving the illusion we are back. What follows that normally? And the stronger the candle, notably, the higher the probability there is going to be a reversal. Even here, when we then broke the low and formed the bottom, another major bullish candle comes through. This is what brings in buyers. We then counteract and at least create a head and shoulders or double bottom of some sorts. And that can essentially be precisely mirrored to exactly where we are now, where at the very least one would assume $80,000 to around $75,000 is a short-term target at least. Before even assessing a major move higher, we should logically at least pull down to this level. And should we see a sufficient weekly closure this week, this is notably where maximum FOMO is being induced, but more importantly where bad things can happen. Now you can never presume or assume or guess exactly what's going to happen, but as always, looking at geopolitical events, this is mostly driven off the basis right now that all of these negotiations are going through, world peace is being achieved, blah, 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 as I've been saying quite a lot. But Trump is a very volatile man right now, and he's not necessarily slowing down. In fact, China came out of nowhere and said, we haven't even negotiated with the man. And everyone said, what? Okay, what's going on here then, Buster? We don't know what's going to happen. And furthermore, there's the India-Pakistan situation, Russia-Ukraine. There are many things here that could escalate out of nowhere. And if you haven't already noticed, these things do not generally happen when we're already crashing. It is after they have strategically deviated us away to believe we are back, which often is the optimal birthing ground to start creating an actual bottom. And this could very well be one of them areas. And I'm saying this because whether I'm wrong or not, and it's worth noting the one thing I get a lot in these circumstances is you're sidelined. No, I am far from sidelined. In fact, I probably have more money in the market right now than those people that call me sidelined. The difference is I have capital sidelined, and I must make that very clear. Because in the event I am wrong, I am still going to profit here. I'm not concerned. But what I understand is, should this unfold, how I still believe it will do, and understand that this is actually a greater sign the next leg down could come through. Should this happen, I'm not going to lose. I'm going to be able to leverage the huge opportunities this brings. Now, notably, altcoins are going to be the biggest focus here. Percentage wise, if you look at BTC from here, let's say we'll do both. Now, let's go to 70,000 as an example. Going up to here, to make 100% on BTC at this point, it needs to go to 140k from 70k. Should we push up further, you're looking at 115%. If we go down to a threshold of around 60, it's still not that favourable, and 100% is 120k. Now, you need to really look at altcoins in such a situation here, because altcoins are mostly in that equivalent standpoint of still being generally around this level. And if we look across the board, there are a few signs here. Now, notably, Ethereum is the biggest one for me, because I think this is in a very dangerous area. Now, at the moment, we are in a vital level here where Ethereum on the monthly time frame has just confirmed a major break of a bullish trend line. In fact, its entire bullish trend from March 2020 has officially just been broken. If you disregard that, this wick has done two things here. Number one, it's closed somewhat bearish, which is a bit of a concern because wicks of this nature tend to get filled to some extent. And notably, with a trend like this breaking, if you disregard the trend line, which most people have probably not drawn because they will get scared of such a thing, but with this now being broken, this creates two possibilities. Number one, as BTC begins this squeeze into this region here in this massive range, if you really want, just consider the whole area a massive area of where a reversal can take place. With this being said, you can now see a possibility that within this area, F could just either slightly pop up to take out its monthly high, or even get somewhat of a squeeze into this threshold, which is around 2,130 to 2,550. Notably, something like this can take place. And the biggest concern now is a lot of people will be buying F off this wick. So you need to compare these, and we'll get to the total market cap in a moment, but as BTC begins to make somewhat of a drive, you need to correspond BTC as the answer to everything. The BTC dominance right now has been moving very well in line with my expectations, and I generally believe that thing could continue surging. With the BTC dominance being where it is right now, if BTC begins to reverse from here, these altcoins will get brutally fisted. And notably, a lot of people will be buying off this wick and leveraging F with stop losses below. So if this comes down to there, your bottom is indicated between most likely these two regions or around these levels, maybe a temporary breach of 60, which could be one big wick. And that would generally be the bottom marking event. Now, if F is the biggest underperformer right now, that gives a small possibility here that with that drop, F could go for one more horrendous break. And that means possibly breaking that low, which I believe I covered in the alt season video before. Should this happen, and again, you want the month to start off somewhat bullish, because this will bring in more buyers. There is a chance here that F can not only reach $1,000, but possibly even take out that low. And if it does that in some form of aggressive move, there is a very high probability this thing will then start to surge and possibly take out this high and become the contender for the alt season, basically in a massive range. And if you look at where it is right now, it's not that logical yet. It looks pretty good, but there is many trends here that have been broken, notably this one as well. So a little rejection of this trend line is absolutely plausible, but the overall bullish trends are all invalidated. And as you know from previous videos, even going back to COVID, when we done the XRP 30k to 600k move, it's predominantly trend lines I use. And this is often mocked, but trend lines are what got me to this F target from up here. That's what got me to BTC down to the 74 region. That's what got me to XRP. Trend lines are very, very useful tools, but the simplicity of them is what makes them laughed at. And a lot of people still say to me, oh my God, you're still using trend lines, lol. But then using trend lines does not change anything. It's a strategy alongside any other strategy. And a lot of people have fallen into this trap that just because they use something called smart money concepts or whatever people use these days, they are smarter than everyone else. That's not the case here. Everyone has a working strategy, and I will probably do a video on that with Bernie soon as well. That's a great part of a psychological lesson. But with where we are, notably, it's very simple. Bullish trend is now broken, so this means whatever is about to happen, possibly to the upside, must be treated as a limited window that could lead to a very large move down. And should this move up be the catalyst that is then followed by some form of major fundamental event or whatever may be, very similar to XRP in this area, where you would have notably remembered it pumped up out of nowhere, everyone absolutely came in their pants, I sold all my XRP here from 15 cents, and then it nuked back down. Now XRP right now is in a very strange area. It's generally holding this region very nicely, but I do believe this will break down below as well. It currently looks very nice, but I do think it's not as readable right now. There is a possible push up on this outstanding as well, and that can be answered here. And I would use BTC in symmetry with that. But BTC is the star of the show here. And looking at the weekly time frame at present, what you really want to be watching for here is how this weekly is going to close. Another major bullish push, and a bullish closure is very dangerous. A pullback below this level and below this prior weekly high by the end of the week, around 96, is even more dangerous. And notably, you see many instances of this here. As an example, using the A to B example again, A to B at this point in time was this level here and this level here. We had the initial crash where everyone thought the bottom was in. If you go to a replay tool and go back to this point in time, no one could have perceived that this was possible. And why is it the market drove up super aggressive before it then went ahead and nuked back down? Something relatively similar is essentially happening right now at this moment in time. And when you view the market like that, it helps you understand what can be happening. We can apply the same over here. Now, how many people could have perceived at this moment in time, if I quickly remove everything, that we were then going to drop to $50,000? The market is a great master of manipulation, as we know. And we once again press the play, and you can see what happens. It's in that moment where you generally believe it's not going to go back ever again, that the market is in preparation to do so. We can also bring back our levels and use one more example over here. I notably called this one on my Instagram publicly many, many years ago now. During this move here, as you watch this unfold, is anyone really looking down? This was the infamous higher low. The market was not yet complete and it still had lower to go. And notoriously, as you may have noticed, this is where we started to get the FTX sequence. Now, why is it the market, before going in for the major kill down below, rallied up aggressively beforehand? This is more than enough evidence, the same as this and every other example, that the markets are rigged beyond belief. And what we are seeing here may very well be the next situation and sequence of those events. And what I will say, as per, and sticking to what I believe is, this deviation may lead to the continuation that leads to the next continuation. So going back to the argument of being sidelined and various other things, a lot of people at the time, once we were down here, wished they were sidelined. And a lot of people said, if we go back to 95, 96, I will take profits. But because we have driven up so aggressively, I guarantee you that has now changed. And those people will not exit those bad positions. They will be adding more. And this is normally what happens. The same applied here. A lot of people in this area prayed for a recovery. And when that recovery started coming, they added more and more instead. So in terms of what could be a major liquidation and capitulation, the next leg down could very well be the most dangerous and potentially very catastrophic. Should this happen, and this happen fast, I'm showing you this because the market as a whole, disregarding any narratives, proposes this possibility without invalidating anything. In fact, a deeper, steeper, sexier trend line, they're all situated around this level. No matter how you draw this, this overall is outstanding, a huge series of events. Now, when we look at the Ethereum trend line I just showed over here, this has also just happened on BTC, which may be a market-wide and wider indication. Should we look here right now, which is going to be a shorter term sign, it's just drawing this one and looking at where we are. This was the last bullish trend really in our sequence. And if I remove this and keep it very simplistic, the market is currently in the process of retracing a major broken bullish trend line, swinging back up. Now, if we hold from here alone, that is an accelerated sign that a drop down aggressively can continue. Because this is, as always, what the market does. The market breaks trends, drives back up and rejects. The breakout here is where people begin to sell in this region. If we remove this and bring that there, this is where people begin to sell because the trend has been broken, they start to panic. Let's make that a bit lighter because that's very, very strong. And what happens is the market then drives up to wipe out those shorters and the people that have capitulated. This is what brings back buyers. The market then generally continues within this area. If this is the first basis that holds, the market then continues in the overall direction to the next trend line. The market is generally, believe it or not, bouncing from trend line to trend line. And notably, one of the public levels I gave was this region here for 87, 88k, where I was expecting 70k from there. We had a pretty good drop of over $10,000 to 74, but it didn't hold up. And most of that was due to trend lines. I will not show those trend lines. You can find them yourself if you wish, but it held up very well initially. Now, notably in this area, there is adequate room to still squeeze up further. But should we see a pop-up this week, possibly even liquidate that high and close back down, well, that means there's a very high probability the remainder of May will crash back down. And the main purpose of this video is just to remind you during this time where everyone is now going to be singing in your ears that we're going to the moon and this is really bullish and everything else that generally comes with this price action, this candle here may be the greatest sign we physically have that something rather negative in the short term could come through. And the reason I'm saying this is just like every other time when the market makes a bit of a recovery, you must look at the bigger picture. And as always, why I remove the colored candlesticks is also because when you look at it like this with simple support and resistance, imagine like a major range here, or even from where we originally drew this, and I'll bring it back to where it was in a moment. If you were to look at it even from this simplistic basis, you must remember this is a major break. The market rejected and slammed down. It's now coming in to fill that void because we didn't actually really close there. It was a rapid move based off mostly manipulation. And now that this has been fulfilled and sustained, this can often become the birthing ground of a continuation down to the next level, as you can see time and time again. And when you remove the colors, it becomes a lot more plausible to see this and assess this. So why I'm also doing this is because if we get the next leg down, you are going to be met with a lot of fear, a lot of FUD, and a lot of negativity. You are going to see everyone that told you new highs here and new lows here, who are now telling you alt season again and everything else, they are going to shift back to bearish. And that's what I really like about this level. A floor has essentially been psychologically embedded where it's not really a true logical floor right now. Therefore, when you zoom out and assess the greater levels the market could achieve, and I'm not really showing the optimized levels, I'm just giving rough examples of clean support and resistance to help build a picture, you will see everyone around you promising the world as always, shift bearish here. And as we squeeze, what could be more effective is not only do people no longer believe we won't hit 70k again, which is good enough in itself to justify why we will likely hit 70k, but should we break 70k and something bad happens geopolitically or whatever the hell is normally caused to move these markets at seemingly the time we think it's the best time, you're going to see so much fear. And if you have made bad decisions, you may not be in a position to buy. But you will see so much convincing you not to buy, specifically if 70k is broken. And especially if we get into here, people will begin to fear the worst. But it's often at the worst that the greatest recoveries come through. And notably, this doesn't really look yet like the classic reversal indications we see. So a lot could theoretically happen in May and June. But I do want to make it very clear once again that this is not bearish, and I believe this will at the very least lead to a recovery, if not continue this market higher like I showed in the alt season video. And this may be exactly what is required to deliver the final devastating blow. And should you see that final devastating blow, do not be scared. And when I say have capital sidelined, this is not about being underexposed. This is about always ensuring you are never fully deployed. Of course, the key is to not necessarily jump into the market here. If we bring the colours back for a moment, of course, you should not be buying this anyway. That's just suicide, financial suicide. And you must remember a lot of people from here will still be long from that bullish candle, thinking they're in the clear. There will be harsh consequences if that is broken, because the current threshold is from November. And I think if we can get below November's candle, magical things will begin to take place. And from essentially the very levels I've shown you, just be open-minded, because I'm not going to show precise levels. This is a rough area to be assessing, and if we do not fall from here, I fear the reversal will be greater, because greed will be maximized further. It does not necessarily look any different to anything we've seen before. And a lot of people are saying we will never get back down to this level again. Well, no one was saying that here. They were saying that here. Now they're saying it again. And this is why it's important to also assess what the current consensus is across the board for most market participants. I think it's very likely from this level we will at least begin to see a pullback down to these lows here in the $80,000 region. I think that's just a very logical level, and maybe that is the bottom. But truthfully, in an area like this, with BTC dominance so high as well, a mere pullback to this region alone will cause enough fear. This may do the trick, but what you need to be paying attention to is altcoins, because F may be posing a very great risk here and giving us a bit of a sign that minus the possibility to play a bit of catch up, we could be in very dangerous territory. And the same is applied to the total market cap right now. If you look at the total market cap, we have come back below the main high. This in itself is already dangerous. The monthly high has just been liquidated. Now, if you compare both side by side, you will note that BTC is already a little bit higher. So should we mirror a similar approach and it doesn't necessarily fall directly from here, the total market cap is always your foundation for where reversals can take place. Again, I'm just going to make one large zone because it's simplistic and I don't want to give precise levels in these videos. But this gives a very good understanding of what may actually be happening here. More notably, not just from where we are, but specifically in this range. Should you see this thing pop up, especially with altcoins so low, they are overdue a catch-up. Whether they catch up or not right now is a question in itself. But if you see this push further, just remember this is significantly lower than BTC. So if the total market is to do what BTC is yet to do, this pushing up to here could elevate BTC to do what it done before. And that is take out the high over here. If that happens, but the total market cap is within this level, the likelihood is BTC is going to crash and burn. No different to how we saw this before in previous cycles over here. This is now at a lower standpoint, predominantly because altcoins are so much lower. But that does not change where we are, and notably this as a whole is a stronger indication of what could be happening for the total market cap as well. I generally think here, with the way this is driven up, it very well could be a trap. Now, you do not want to bet your life on such a situation, but what you want to do, as always, is just have the common sense and rationale to not FOMO in where everyone else is FOMOing in, and that's essentially the basis of this entire video. It may be horribly wrong. I don't care. This is what I see, and as always, this is what I will show. You will generally be correct more going against the herd than you will do. And it's notable to mention that when the herd are correct, It's always temporary. That's something very important to note as well. When the herd were correct here, and all you're seeing is meme coin profits and leverage trade profits, where is all of that these days? All of that got wiped here. So if this is that final desperate hope for most people, and you start seeing that return as well, which no doubt you probably will soon, I have no doubt that if we see the next leg down, specifically if paired with some form of fear-induced event, we have likely got our bottom, and we will then see our alt season. But around this level, just be cautious. Do not be afraid to keep capital on the side, guys. I cannot say this and stress this enough. The higher we squeeze here, I would say the higher the probability we're going to drop. Do not be fearful to keep capital on the side. Be cautious of positions. A lot will argue, well, if BTC goes lower, how low will altcoins go? Well, you can take a look back in history at how low altcoins can go when they do these things. Ethereum, for me, is going to be one of the stronger coins that follow in this alt season and will probably become the front runner, where I have no doubt this high is probably very close to getting taken out. I just think that extra drive would really bring the fear in. I almost feel we hit a level where there was fear, but not true fear. Not fear to the extent where people really capitulate. Of course, with prices trading significantly higher, the size of those liquidations can be greater. But a lot of faith remains strong here because it remained within a threshold. It's only when those thresholds are generally broken that you actually see a true bottom formed. And this gave people adequate time to accumulate. It also gave people adequate time right now to continue accumulating, which makes this floor dangerous in itself, let alone if this breaks. And I assure you, if you get this, everyone will be telling you we are going to the ground. It's over, it's dead. And that's normally what happens before alt season continues and really gets going. I don't think this cycle is yet done, and a lot of that is based on how we are currently trading. But really and truly, a mere sweep to the downside here could be a game changer, because that will shake everyone out, mirror what we saw here, and we can see things get rather prosperous from there. Right now, Mr. President is on a bit of a rampage, but that will very likely change, I feel. And right now he's becoming the man that everyone's, blaming for all of the failures and the market losses, etc. But I think if this is combined with a stock market collapse also and one more squeeze to the downside, we will very likely see full market recovery. I think the current recovery is somewhat of an illusion, but the next drop would likely be the full recovery. Let's wait and see. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope this all made sense. Let me know if you like the format of this video, because I'm happy to do more like this, where I kind of explain in the beginning as well my initial thoughts as a bit of a roundup, and there will be a lot more videos as promised anyway moving forward. But I thought this would be something refreshing, and of course a natural continuation. I used to do these a lot in 2021. Again, during this COVID onward cycle, I was hella active on YouTube, and I know I've been slacking, but I'm in the right place now. I'm in my comfortable zone. I'm getting back in that flow of things, and I want to do a lot more YouTube videos like this. I stopped for a long time, and I want to get back to exactly what I was doing with an even grander style. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. As always, let me know your thoughts and feedback in the comments. You may not agree with me. That's completely fine. But this is what I see. So I want to make sure I just share my thoughts regardless of what the outcome is and what people believe.